But of course, I do want to talk about, we've left the elephant sitting in the room dead on the floor and ignored it. Kiwi Farms murdered Near. Murdered.
Oh, do you know the story to this? Just out of curiosity. Okay.
Yep. I do know the story to this, it's an amazing story because 1 second of thought about it goes, oh, okay, I got it.
So there was a non-binary person named Bu or Near, who is pretty well known in emulator circles because he was responsible for making a Nintendo 64 emulator, which was very popular. Nintendo 64, in case you're unaware, is notoriously difficult to emulate because it ran on a proprietary CPU, which was never used in anything else. So to emulate,
it was awesome. It was an awesome CPU that was custom made for Nintendo. I remember reading about it. Like it was at the time it came out, the N64 and the PlayStation came out. It was a 64-bit system in the era of 32-bit, and it ran on this. I think it was like a specially customized Pentium or something, and it was so much faster than everything around. You're like, how did they accomplish this?
No, he made a Super Nintendo emulator, but he also was working on an N64 emulator, and it was extremely impressive because I think he had to like reverse engineer the architecture of the N64 to figure out a way to make this frame perfect. If I'm remembering this correctly, so he was well respected and well liked in that circle, and he had a thread. He had a very brief thread because he was a very dramatic fella, and he is a very dramatic fella, and he liked to like threatened to drop support. He would disappear for a long time. He was like a non-binary furry. There was some weird controversy over his avatar being like a cub fur or something, like potentially he was a diaper fur. I don't know, something like that. And his thread over years had 6 pages. So I think that's like 45 posts in the entire history of this thread. And more interestingly, we had a moderator who was definitely a weird mentally handicapped person, but he did a good job moderating. And his name was CIA Neighbor. Though I cannot say his actual username, but if you know, you probably know what I mean. And CIA Neighbor suicided his account one day. And I had no idea. I was cleaning out the mods, and I was like, "This guy hasn't logged in like a year. I wonder what's up with that." So I go to the admin log. I check what he last did, and the last action he did was he deleted a thread. Thinking, that's weird. So I restore it, and it was Bu's thread. And Bu sent me an email months later, and his email was basically like this: "I will give you $100,000 to delete my thread. If you don't delete my thread, I will kill myself." Which, if you don't know, is called extortion. You cannot send an email like that. That is plain by the letter, clear as day, unambiguous extortion. You cannot say this. If you don't do this, I will do X is extortion.
Yep. So I said that is a federal felony offense. In the United States, that email would be a federal felony offense.
So I replied, which probably, I don't know if it was a good idea or a bad idea in retrospect, but I told him because I felt that. And I said, like, look, dude, I'm not going to delete your thread. And I think it's illegal for me to accept your money. So as much as I would like $100,000, it would be wrong for various reasons for me to accept this money. However, if you give me a moment, if you wait a little bit, I'm going to make you a counteroffer. So I go to bed. I'm in a completely different time zone. He's supposedly in Japan. I'm in Ukraine at this time, I think, or Serbia. And he sends me a couple of emails saying like, no, really, I mean, if you don't do it right now, I'm going to kill myself. I wake up and the last thing I see is him waking up to the news that Hector Martin had published a suicide note. And I reply, and my reply is simply, I will not be extorted. And that's the end of that. And then people start trying to rally to get the site taken down. The only consequence of this is DreamHost, a company I've been using as a domain registrar since I was a teenager. I think I got my account with them when I was 16 years old. Decided to tell us to move immediately, all of our domains. They were closing my account, which I did. So that was the outcome of that. And what I find very frustrating about this is that reading his emails, I really felt like what he needed was like people to work with, and I was going to offer to give him something to do. I wanted to work with him on something because I felt like he was a
Sure.
very talented person, and I thought like it would be great if I worked on the.
You mean like a programming project, for example?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was just thinking about starting my forum software stuff, and I thought, God, that would be great to have someone like this to work with, and he would probably feel better if he was working with somebody. And I never had to make that offer because he terminated the conversation overnight. And
Right. By terminating his life.
allegedly. But he puts out this note, and someone says that they verified that he committed suicide. The first thing they say is that we verified he committed suicide because we called the Tokyo police and they confirmed it, which is a ludicrous statement.
Yeah.
A ludicrous statement. Literally saying, hello, Moshi Moshi, Tokyo police desu? Is Bew dead? And they go, hello, she, hi, very dead desu. And okay, thanks, bye. And there's no like recording of this, of course. It's just like a statement by someone in the know that they can definitely confirmed it. And then a week later, there is a posted picture of an urn that has his name on it, and the date he died. This is his coworker, and he says it's true. And even ABC News published that coworkers confirmed it with the picture. So this was the evidence confirmed 100% that Bew had killed himself because the picture of this urn existed. And the guy, in case you're interested, lived in Hong Kong. A little bit north of Hong Kong is a city called Shenzhen. Shenzhen is one of the largest port cities in the entire fucking world. It is a massive warehouse the size of a city. You can find anything in Shenzhen. You can not just find that urn and engrave it with whatever the fuck you want. You could find probably cremated human remains to put in the urn to show off. So I do not believe for a second that this guy in Japan killed himself. It was verified over the phone to an anonymous person, and then his ashes were his body was immediately cremated and sent to a random fucking guy that he's not related to, only by work, in an urn, by the Japanese police. And then the kicker was, when this was being discussed and people were thinking, can we debunk if he's actually dead? Someone said, oh, I know that the Department of State releases a list of a count, like a tally of people American citizens who died overseas. Right. So we'll just wait for this periodic 6-month statement about people who have died overseas and see if there's a suicide there. And I'm thinking like, oh man, Japan, probably lots of Americans kill themselves in Japan. They all fucking kill themselves over there. But sure enough, this report comes out, and there was a suicide the month of, but before the emails were sent. And then for the entire year, we've looked at 2 of these now. There has not been a single American death or suicide after Bew's emails. So we know for a fact, because the Japanese are fucking psychotic about their bureaucracy, that this guy did not kill himself in Japan, because it would have been reported to the Department of State, and it would have appeared on this report that they put out. So 100% he did not kill himself. And he tried to extort me. And when that didn't work, he put on this fucking campaign to try and get my shit shut down by lying. And the only evidence of it, the only evidence to come out of this is an urn bought by a man in Hong Kong, where I could fly to Hong Kong and you could give me $20 and I could cross the border to China and find you a fucking urn and put your name on it, and it would be out by the end of the day. Okay, it's just ridiculous. And it's so frustrating. And this, what's also frustrating is that they say
you even need to go to Shenzhen to get an urn with some ashes in it. That's
I could get you a good ass urn in Shenzhen. I could get LEDs on that fucker because he's a gamer. Get some LEDs on it.
I feel like you could just get an urn engraved, like at any
you don't need to show a death certificate to get like an urn made. You try to buy an urn, they're like, sir, can I see your paperwork for this urn? This is a regulated urn.
Well, these urns are reserved for verified dead. It's like, well, what if I just want an urn? Like if I want to make a movie prop or whatever, literally any reason you could just get an urn. It's not like it's special. And of course, there's never been a death certificate. No one, if I'm not mistaken, Bew/Near was never actually quote unquote doxxed. So no one knows who this person was. So all you have to do
nobody
is
knew his name. We didn't, speaking of threads that didn't have docs, we didn't have his fucking name. We didn't have his address. We didn't have a picture of the motherfucker. He posted all that himself in his suicide note. And by the way, in his email, he said that he would publish like his passport and other government IDs, and that never came out. So this guy is alive and well in Serbia. I met him when I was doing my face off with Epstein.
To be fair, he would have published the passport, but he forgot that he had to do that before dying, and he tried after death, and it didn't work. No, but see, of course, and it's one of the most convenient things, because this has been the clarion call of every single person since this incident. Notorious website bullies mentally disabled person into suicide is the run, and it's always Bew/Near that they talk about. I mean, I know there's some like allegation of the previous one, but
nobody bullied Near. He even joined the forum, and people talked to him, and we said, like, bro, you're fine. Like, just just move on. Like, people respect you, people like you, and he decided to pull this shit, and it's fucking bizarre. The other people, by the way, I get blamed for usually 3 suicides. I get blamed for the Bew thing. The first one, the first suicide that happened for a person that had a thread was not Chloe Segal, Terryberry. Julie Terryberry killed herself, and she was in an abusive relationship with a much older man who posted on the forum. And she would routinely threaten to kill herself if her boyfriend left her, because her boyfriend put her into pornography with himself that got published online. So she's thinking, she's young. I'm in porn now with my boyfriend, and if he dumps me, nobody's going to want to be with me because I've already, done porn. And there's other things to it. You can't blame suicide on one specific thing, but she routinely threatened to do this. And he left her one day, and she killed herself. And it's like, I'm pretty sure the fact that she didn't have any family because she was adopted, and she had been in porn, and her boyfriend was leaving her was the reason that, because she didn't leave a note. She didn't blame the forum. Her boyfriend blamed the forum, and he had reason to blame the forum. So I don't think that Julie Terryberry killed herself because of the forum at all. The other person is Chloe Segal. Chloe Segal was transgender, and Chloe Segal had been evicted.
Steven Seagal before the
No. They did like small indie video games, but they got evicted from their house. By the way, of other LGBT people, they got evicted because Chloe Segal had severe behavioral issues and made enemies constantly. They were completely isolated in the LGBT sphere. They were sort of like excommunicated by it, and then they got evicted because they couldn't get along with their roommates. They committed suicide by immolation, which is crazy.
Holy shit. That's dedication.
And before they set themselves on fire, they gave a speech where they said America has a serious problem with homelessness and mental health care. People heard it, and that's what they reported. It did not say anything about the Kiwi farms, and if they had, they didn't post about it. I think the fact that they were literally homeless and they had nowhere to go and they had no money and nobody was willing to support them. Their GoFundMe's had $0 contributed to it. I'm pretty sure that was the factor that led to them committing suicide. And then
when you feel alone in the world and then you try and prove yourself wrong and prove yourself right because no one will support you at all, that's got to be really fucking depressing.
Yeah, there's like a trend there, isn't it?
Yeah.
The third one, this one doesn't get brought up as much because of something I'll mention, but this happened during the Trans Lifeline stuff. Greta Gustava, who was removed from their board of directors for Trans Lifeline for inurement of charity money, blamed us for the death of a frequent caller to the Trans Lifeline suicide hotline because we were explicitly mentioned in their suicide note. Problem is that this person did not have a thread, and they had not been mentioned anywhere except in passing in one post. And the suicide note said, I do not want to live in a world, to the effect of, I do not want to live in the world with websites like Kiwi Farms and our president being Donald Trump. So like in the same breath, Donald Trump was equally to blame for the suicide. And then they were in a relationship with another transgender person who said that Kiwi Farms had nothing to do with it and blamed it squarely on Trans Lifeline because they had an issue where they had no operators. And if you called them, you wouldn't get anyone to pick up. And they said that Trans Lifeline didn't help and frequently didn't answer. and blamed it on them. And then the director of Trans Lifeline blamed me, and the spouse was going on and saying, "Don't you fucking dare use this person's death as a weapon against your enemies when you had more to do with it than them." And that's the reason that one doesn't get brought up as much.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the one that I see tossed about the most right now is probably because it's most recent time, of course, is Bunir. And every time I'm like, yeah, but I know this story, and I know that there's no. I mean, the closest evidence we have of Bu's death is this random note posted by someone else that says, "I totally defo know that this happened because of this," which doesn't make any sense. And then I didn't really know about the urn thing, but the urn thing it's the same quality. It's a literal nothing. There's nothing here. And so it's like, okay, there's a distinct lack of any official record or evidence of this person's existence. There's no pictures from a funeral. There's nothing. And like you said, this person was actually really liked in several circles that would be happy to have celebrated their life, right? And mourned their death publicly. That's why Bu gets brought up all the time. It's why they get brought up as the thing, because they were relatively liked. But like you said, the forum post for it was really not very long, like 41 posts or pages.
Nobody was harassing Bu.
No.
The thread.
No, I wasn't thinking so.
No, just to reiterate, it's not even that how long it was. It could be super long, but I can tell just by reading the post that nobody had any ill will towards them at all, which makes the behavior even more bizarre. And I've heard a conspiracy theory, and I'm a big fan of conspiracy theories, if you didn't know. Yes. That Bu, because of his N64 emulation, was in trouble with Nintendo. If you don't know, Japan has some of the strongest copyright laws, probably stronger than even Germany, which is already fucking crazy with copyright laws. Japan would really go after you for copyright theft. So there was the allegation that he had stolen code for his N64 emulator, which is why it was so good. And Nintendo was after him for criminal copyright issues. So it would be very convenient if he simply disappeared and everyone thought he was dead.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, especially if this person, like, I don't know how much money they have, but if they're offering to legitimately pay you $100,000 and you take them at their word that they have it, then they have some level of resource to go ahead and disappear. And just when disappearing literally means shedding your online identity to just be you, like that's not that hard. It's not like you're going into protective custody or having to physically relocate necessarily, to do this. Or even if you do, if you've got $100,000 to say, take down my forum posts, instead you could convert that $100,000 to moving just literally anywhere other than Japan and avoiding a whole lot of trouble.
And then you can move to whatever. You can move to Thailand with a different name, and then you can say, "Oh, hello, I'm a new Thai developer. I'm very interested in continuing the legacy of this brilliant trans programmer. I'm going to start contributing to it." And
that has not happened, has it?
I think there's some speculation. I don't know. Maybe he's waiting a little bit longer. I haven't looked into it, but that's what I'm assuming will happen eventually.
Yeah, because that's what I thought too. I was like, oh, the project's going to be picked up by some person, who was a big admirer or something like that, and studied their work and found out how they did something. They had the key, right? Like they cracked the code that let Bu be so smart or whatever. They ate all the Wheaties.